Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Better at Beach podcast. My name is Mark Burik, and we are back. I took a vacation. I went, kind of a work vacation, went to Miami to run one of our camps with King and Queen of the Court event. That was awesome. Then went to Spain, where I was in Barcelona, Madrid, Sevilla for a night, and Granada. Yeah, and Granada. And then we went over to Portugal, and I'm going to do a whole podcast on that, just telling you all about Spain, Portugal, the volleyball life there. And we had such a good time. And it helps us realize that the things that we're doing, the content that we're putting out, it's got a global reach. So just if you're listening or if you're watching this, thank you guys so much. It was such a breath of fresh air to get out from behind the desk, get out and do some volleyball and touring, and realizing the impact that Better at Beach has had. So before we get into today's podcast, and today is another hybrid podcast where we are in our complete coaches meeting. And if you want to be trained as a beach volleyball coach, then you go to betteratbeach.com/coach. We have live meetings, and then you get to ask me, my staff, and our special guests any questions you want after we do our little podcast interviews. So if you're interested in that, head over to betteratbeach.com/coach. It comes with all of our workout programs. It comes with all of our skill programs. And of course, you get to post all of the videos and drills that you do in our private community so that we can help you with your technique and your strategy. We do have some upcoming camps, and we are rocking with a lot of 3-day camps. So I want to just announce them. We are the weekend before Thanksgiving, November 22nd. We are in Long Island, New York, and we are in Scottsdale, Arizona, right after Thanksgiving. I think we have 2, maybe 3 spots left, but we're going to Punta Cana, Dominican Republic for 7 days at an all-inclusive resort at the Paradisus, Palma Real. That's going to be awesome. It's mostly alumni, so it's awesome people, and all-inclusive in the Caribbean. Can't go wrong. After that, we're in Loveland, Ohio at Grandstands, January 24th to 26th. Then I think as of now, this camp has sold out, but we're in Tacoma, Washington with the Keene Volleyball. And March 7th to 9th, we're coming back to VB Beach, Ozark in Ozark, Missouri. And in June, we've got some dates far out, but June, we are heading back to Virginia Beach, which is becoming just a monster camp every time we run there. And June 27th to 29th, we are going to go to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We are adding a lot of dates. I want you guys to try to keep the New Year's open. It's not going to be like our normal years where we run a full 7 to 10 day camp, but we are trying to get a 4-day camp off the ground. The hurricanes, plural, stopped us in St. Pete, and the hotels are struggling. The beaches are struggling. So we're still trying to get a January 1st camp off the ground. So just keep checking betteratbeach.com/camps. And if you want us to come to your town, if you want us to run in your neighborhood or at your facility or run a 3-day camp for your team, your club, or your coaches, just get in touch. Email support@betteratbeach.com. All we really need is reservable, bookable courts, and we can be there for you. All right. So today we have Marlie Monserez, and Marlie's got a pretty interesting path. I don't know a ton about her, so I'm really excited to have this conversation. But she played at the University of Florida. She played indoor there. And then she ended up playing beach for 2 years at UCLA. She ditched beach, hated it, and then moved back to playing pro indoor at one of the new professional women's indoor leagues that are in the U.S. And I know a ton of people are so excited about that. We want pro volleyball to exist on our turf, and there have been at least a dozen attempts at it, but it feels like this one's strong. And even with 2 leagues kind of competing, there's still strength and there's attendance and people going. So I'm really interested to hear about that and hear about Marlie's journey through indoor to beach to indoor. So hi, Marlie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you taking time out of your day. So which pro indoor league are you playing for? And let's introduce me and anybody who's listening to the current landscape of pro indoor, at least for women in the US.
Yes, I'm playing for the Pro Volleyball Federation, so PVF. We did the first season already. It was awesome. I loved it. They have a great group of girls involved in it, so it's been really fun.
How many teams are there in the Pro Volleyball Federation?
There were 7 the first year. They added Indy this year. So Indianapolis will be a new team, so now there'll be 8.
Okay. And the competing league, which, shall not be named, but we got to name it, is Lovb, L-O-V. And do you know the differences mainly between those two leagues? Are they like really competing? Is it going to be like a CFL, NFL type deal or AFL, NFL type deal where they end up combining or merging at some point? What do you think about that?
I think they're set up pretty differently at the core, but I mean, honestly, they haven't started yet. So I think we'll have more answers at the end of the first year where everybody kind of has a season behind them. So I don't know how much I can add to it because they haven't had a season yet.
Man, they've been promoting so heavily. And like, while I'm not on top of indoor really at all anymore, even though I do think indoor highlights are way better than than beach highlights. It's Lovb has been promoting hardcore, on my feeds at least, they're really going. So forgive my ignorance for not even understanding that they're not up and running yet.
Yes, their marketing team is awesome. So we will see this fall, or they already reported. So both leagues report, either already have or report in the next few weeks, and we both start in January. So we'll kind of just see.
So what's that season like then? You're going January to what?
Our opening weekend is the January 8th, 9th, 10th, and then we go till mid-May.
Okay. So it's kind of a shortened season, like the European seasons back when I was playing, which seems to be farther and farther away nowadays. I reported for one team, I reported in August and wasn't let out until May, which was long. And then for some of the other leagues that, showed up in October and then it ended mid-April. So sounds like it's a bit of a shortened season, kind of half a year, but longer than the college season.
Mm-hmm. I think that is part of the appeal for some women coming back from overseas. It's not as long, it's livable pay. So I think spending holidays with family and just kind of being able to have your friends and family come watch you is a big thing for everyone.
Nice. And it's salaries? Is it we're putting you up in a room, in an apartment, in a dorm? Can we consider this a job for that part of the year, or can we consider it a job for the entire year?
You get paid, so they have it broken down online, but this year there's salary tiers. So it starts at 60, then there's a 75 slot, a 125 spot, a 175 spot. So, I mean, it's livable, and they pay for housing or provide you a stipend. I think they're doing it all the right ways. They're trying to go about it like other pro sports are. And you get paid by game. So they just break up whatever your salary is by game, and you get paid whatever percentage that game is compared.
Okay. What if you get hurt for a game? Is there like a injury insurance or anything like that?
Similar to other sports in America, there's an injury reserve. You're on an injury list. You do get paid less, but you still get paid. You don't just get cut out and you're done. But there's different tiers to injury reserve.
Nice. So 60K as a base is not bad.
Not bad. No.
I mean, when you're talking like a lot of the European leagues and what I was making some of my years, there's there's a football book called Playing for Pizza. It's about a semi-pro football player living in Italy playing for their pro football team, of which there were like maybe 4, and literally it was his salary came out of the local Italian restaurant where he just had pizza, and he's got a bunch of stories like that. And that was a couple of my years for sure, where you don't have much to put away. I had a ton of spare time now that I think about it. And I'm like, oh man, what an idiot. I could have been learning a lot more at that time. But that's livable. $60K for 5-6 months. That's nice.
Yeah, I think it's really nice. And I think they do a really good job of trying to do what they can to get athletes to leave overseas and come back. And I think they're doing a nice job at it.
Yeah. You kind of wonder or like hope, because a lot of those European teams will hire teams for the second half of the season or for playoffs. But maybe it was a thing where they didn't want to compete with the attendance at the college season in the fall. I'm just kind of wondering, because that would be really nice. Like if you could play summer all the way into winter, you get paid your American salary. And then those teams, after seeing a bunch of game footage from you, is like, come play the second half of the season and our playoffs with us. It could be a nice gig, but didn't line up that way with this season. Do you think it was because of the NCAA kind of mashup with massive attendance at NCAA women's games now?
I think it was it helped step forward and show that there's so much interest. And I think, we just in 1 year, attendance was great. I mean, weekday games obviously aren't great. Some games were pretty empty, but I mean, almost every weekend game, we averaged around 6,000 people coming to the games, and averaged throughout the league. It wasn't Omaha sold out every time, and they had like 12,000 people there just because it's such a great community. Atlanta did really well, for sure in the thousands, mid thousands, but it was really cool to see how many people were interested in volleyball.
That's great attendance. I mean, you got a dog or a cat back there making some noise? It's okay. Good. We love animals at Better Beach. That's such good attendance. I mean, you really don't see those numbers in the men's game for sure, unless you're Hawaii or UCLA versus USC, and Penn State when they're playing some teams, but 6,000 as an average, that's big attendance. Yay, volleyball.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was really cool to see. I mean, it definitely wasn't every place. Omaha is such a hotbed for volleyball. So they really did bring up the average, but it was fun. Even when there were only a few thousand, I think the fans that were there were really interested and really made it fun. So it was cool.
Nice. So you played at the University of Florida, indoor. And so let's just kind of talk about that. Do you think, because in my experience, some of the leagues were definitely a step down in skill level when I went overseas. And then some of the teams, especially in Croatia, that I got to play for was a significant level up. So from your college experience at University of Florida to this pro league, what do you think is the difference in skill level? Is there any? Are you playing basically the same people?
I would say you're playing a few of the same people. I was surprised, it being a first-year league, how competitive it was. Definitely people we grew up playing against. My team had a ton of girls from the SEC, so it was rivals and we were playing together, and I think it was way more competitive than we all initially thought, because you're skeptical of going into a new league. Yeah. And I thought it did a really nice job. Teams worked really well together and put up a really good product. There definitely were really good foreign girls that came and played. So we were allowed two per team. This year it's 3 per team. So that helps the level as well. I would say it is a step up from where I was at Florida. We were a Sweet 16, Elite 8 team. And I would say, like, in this league, you definitely had, like, the best players on the teams in college were playing. So there weren't as many weak links as you have in college, or I think there were just more people that cared and, like, were really, really competitive. It's like you got every competitive kid from college, and then they're like, you're going to go play pro. So
nice. The people that wanted to be in the weight room, that wanted to be in the gym extra. And plus, you don't have the 17-year-old who has never been in a weight room, but kind of needs a starting role because your senior just graduated. I mean,
yes,
I remember my coaches telling me, like, when you're 21, 22, you think you're at the pinnacle of volleyball and you're graduating college, and they're like, you're not even close to your potential, like not remotely close. Like, wait until you're 30 and you don't have to try to get kills. You just know how to get it, and you can do them in smarter ways, and you learn about energy conservation and upbeat and downbeat sets and swings. And I was like, yeah, right. And like now, I'll be scared to say, but I'll be turning 40 this year. Like, I would wipe the floor with 22, 25, 30-year-old Mark. Wipe the floor with them, just from a knowledge of the game and strategy standpoint. And so now I understand what he's talking about. But you get those players at the pro level where they can do some things on autopilot that in college you're still thinking about and trying to perfect or get really good at.
We definitely had some of those in our league. There was an outside, Betty De La Cruz Mejia, and she's an Olympian, and she's been playing for forever. I mean, I've looked up to her since I was little, but she will look like there's no way she'll get a kill on this ball, and she doesn't even try, and it hits the ground. And it's almost every time she would swing, it's a kill. You're like, how did she do that? Well, she just sees it. So, it was really cool and really a fun experience to play with so many women that just have so much more knowledge from all the years of playing.
Is there anybody that you're looking up to right now, or tips that you've received in this pro league at that level that have opened your eyes to something you wish you would have had in college?
That's a great question. I think almost not the pro league. I think beach volleyball taught me to not care as much. I think I was like a really stressed volleyball player throughout my college. And once I went to beach volleyball, Stein Metzger, who's the coach at UCLA, would always say it's one step above ping pong. And that just stuck with me. Like every day I'll go into the gym and I'll be like, it's one step above ping pong. Like it's not that serious. It's not life and death. So that's something I wish I knew when I was playing, even in undergrad, let alone playing in high school. I wish I knew that it just isn't that serious. You definitely have to work hard. You should be the hardest work in the gym, but it's one step above ping pong, and it is for fun in the end.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's tough to remember, because you're giving your life to it, and you figure, if I give this many hours and this much effort, there should be these results that I'm seeing. And if you're honest with yourself, if you're honest with the effort that you're putting forward, if you're watching your own film, if you're hunting down your own coaches, your own trainers, and getting all that information on your own, then yeah, you should see results in it. And it's painful when you don't. And one thing that I've got to remind the players that I work with long-term is this wavy increase in our ability and our finishes. You hit those bottoms and you think because you were able to do it yesterday and you can't do it today, you're trending up. It's still going up. And you have to release that day to day, like, man, I crushed this shot yesterday, or I hit these weight numbers last week. Why can't I do it again? But the consistency in everything in life and sports and fitness, that's what pays off. And so when you look at things on a month-to-month basis instead of a week-to-week basis, and then sometimes with beach volleyball, especially pro circuit, you don't get to look at it month-to-month because you have a tournament. So then you think about it as tournament by tournament basis, which is really tough because you might be hitting one of your down waves on those dates, even though you're better every day in practice, you're better every day at the competition. It's not always about that immediate result, but are you getting consistently better each day? And yeah, that's something that I guess everybody can learn from. Yeah,
for sure.
Is there something that you tell yourself other than it's a step above ping pong to calm yourself mentally or emotionally when you start feeling stress come?
I actually do. I'll either write it on my hand or just say it. I say to have joy, like to play with joy, be grateful. I'm like a really energetic person when I'm playing. So if I'm not having fun, I don't think it's worth it. After I went and played beach, I loved it so much that I was like, I'm not going back. I don't, I don't really want to play anymore. I'll just end here. Like this was great. I had 2 years at UCLA. It was amazing. But I'm good. I'll just go get a job. And then the season started to end and I was like, wait, I can't be done with sports. And then the opportunity to play indoor came back and I was like, okay, fine, I'll try, whatever. What's the worst that can happen? So from going from beach back to indoor, just the thought of not having joy because before I left and went to play beach, I wasn't the happiest. I played my senior season and it was fine. It was good. I loved the program, but I was ready to be done. And then I played beach and it was like a new revival of being an athlete again. And then I wanted to keep playing. I wanted to keep doing it. So then when I went back to indoor, there's just no negotiation of if I'm not having fun, I'm not doing this because I got my master's from UCLA. I can go get a job. I can coach. I can do whatever. I don't have to do something if I'm not happy doing it. So I remind myself every day to have joy in it and be really grateful because it's not something you have to do. Volleyball is a gift and it's something we all get to do.
That's cool. I like that. And if more people reminded themselves of that, is this, even if it's not volleyball or sport, is this bringing me greater joy over time? Mm-hmm. You can change. You can very quickly change. I got a friend who went from I think like a $450,000, maybe a $500,000 salary to, he was so depressed. And then now he's got only a base of like 250,000. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? like, are you having fun with the activities you're doing? Like, you're set for life, dude. You are more set than 99.9% of the people on earth. Like, you're doing fine. And so like that kind of talk just like calmed him down a little bit because even if you do take a pay cut in some job, are you still set? Are you still fine? Are you still making good decisions? Like, don't look at it like that because he left his other job because he was hating it. Mm-hmm. And I go, you're going to be so much happier. And at that level, once you're like, what the difference between 250 and 200 or 250 and 300,000 a year, like that is not a life-changing. It's what you're thinking about, what you're dreaming about, what you're doing throughout the day. And are you smiling when you're doing it? And so, he was able to calm down a little bit after that, some high-level salary talk. And I'm just like, dude, do you know how many hours I work to not make nearly that much? But I like what I do. I love what I do. So I get to wear a smile on my face. What are the skills that you think, we're going to take it the opposite direction that people normally do. What do you think skills that ruined or that people should definitely not do from sport to sport? So something that you do in indoor that you're like, man, I could not and should not do that in beach. And same thing for beach. Like, what do you do in beach that you cannot, should not do? Or once you're on the hard court, your mind has to completely reset and say, don't go into beach mode.
Mm-hmm. I would say for me as a setter, I didn't have to unlearn or relearn hitting stuff because I hadn't hit in so long. I hit in high school. So I would say something that you don't want to, from beach to indoor as a hitter, would be, you don't want to just become really shoddy indoor, because at the end of the day, you kind of you can have shots and be really good at them, but it's not as important as it is in beach. I think you got to be able to go and bang a ball indoor more times than not. Setting is just completely different. I think I was going back to my brain just didn't really even compute that they were the same skill almost. So it wasn't as difficult because I was like, they're completely different. Like, one you're holding it, one you're not. And so funny enough, when I transitioned back from beach to indoor, I had to relearn how to hold it longer because I wanted to use, like, the Florida coach and I sat down and talked and we're like, how can we make this transition better and be better at the end of the day than I was when I finished at Florida? And it actually was holding the ball longer, which made it almost easier to transition back because I had been holding it in beach. So it became like, keep holding it, but just put your hands where you would put them in indoor. So like I took my hands really high and then I would receive the ball kind of a ton. But I would say for most people, you don't want to lift the ball in indoor. That's probably the non-negotiable. Don't do that. But now almost beach settings changing too. It's becoming so much faster. It's becoming less holding. I was talking to one of my best friends, Lexi Denneberg, last week.
Oh, yeah.
And yes. And she was like, I don't do that anymore, Mar. Like, I don't lift the ball anymore. I set really fast. Talking about like comparing it to indoor. She's like, no, it's more comparable now. And I'm like, well, that is really cool to see.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like more comparable. It'll take a while for it to get into like the grassroots of saying like, hey, we're actually only going up. And people, they also make that mistake of, okay, I have to be fast. It's no, you only need to have upward motion with your elbows and arms. Like, calm down. They're just looking for you to not drop your forearms heavily with the beach set. And yeah, they're calling less doubles. They're calling more lifts, and it freaked out and bothered some of the players that had been setting a certain way for their entire career. And now they have to change it. And then there's, the old school people who will never, ever, ever be happy if there's half a rotation on a ball. And if you say that ruins the game, it's just the game. It's, your version of play is a different than wherever the game is going. So it's becoming, what's interesting to me is the no doubles scenario in the NCAA that they're trying out or moving definitely towards.
It's done. Yeah. There's no doubles if it stays on your side of the net. So if you set it over the net and it's a double, you're called for a double.
That's a double.
But I just think like a lot of professional leagues too, like overseas, they're not really calling doubles anyway. Like it has gotten more lenient, and I'm okay with it being taken out of the NCAA because I think some of the subjectivity is just, it gets annoying where you're like, well, that girl just set that ball, it spun once, and you just called a double, and it wasn't a double, it just spun.
Yeah. So
I'm okay with it just because I think that's one of the subjective things of the game that is annoying when you're a spectator. I understand people are very upset with, like, as setters, it ruins training, but I completely disagree. I think you have to learn how to set without doubling, and to be a good setter, it can't be a double.
I've got to rewatch the podcast that Sandcast did with Travis and the ref, where they said that the majority of balls that would have been called mishandled anyway, I think the opposite team was winning the majority of that. So I'm like 75, 80%. I'm missing the stats on it, but I want to rewatch it. Guys, if you haven't seen the referee podcast on Sandcast, they go over those setting rules, and he actually comes to you with stats, because these people are not just changing rules. They're looking at it, studying it, saying, what effect is it going to have on the game? What effect is it currently having on the game? And then making that move. It's not arbitrary as you might think it is.
Because if it's actually a double, it's just a bad set.
Yeah, right. Bad set's a bad set. If you mangle it, you mangle it. But so if you watch Loy Ball, one of the greatest setters in history, he didn't set many clean balls. I mean, it was always spinning, but it was always in the right spot, the right decision, quick, So, but let's get back to a little bit of the transition, because we have so many indoor players that are beach now converted to beach. And I love what you said, where you said, they're just different skills. I never tied them together as like, okay, now I have to adjust my setting. This is beach setting. This is indoor setting. So when you made that transition to beach from indoor, what were you telling yourself on the beach? Were you saying relearn or don't relearn, like this is a completely new skill? And was there anything that you had to consistently remind yourself of, something that you do as a setter in indoor that you're like, please stop doing this in beach? Because I know that there's a few pet peeves where I'm like, I see that you can definitely do that in indoor, but you're going to mess your hitter up on the beach. So what did you find?
I found that I really did look at them like they were completely different. There's no instance where I would set a ball indoor and completely bend my legs. It's just like a different motion. I think Stein was a great teacher when it came to setting. Lexi helped me a ton as well. And it was just relearning a skill. Like in indoor volleyball, you have to square up and set. But if you don't square up, it's fine. But in beach, if you don't square up, it's like, well, that's now I don't think that's going to be very good when you're learning. So like squaring up or taking the ball in front was something I really had to learn because I didn't really understand how to set a ball on the beach from here. And that's where I set an indoor. Yeah. So that's how I kind of differentiated. Like, I'm never going to set a ball with my hands if it's right here. I'm going to panic and do something else. But I will not be setting with my hands if it's above my head. And I think kind of like the rocking through it that Stein would talk about, it just separated the skills.
Yeah. I also, so I hope I get quoted in a few years, but I think squaring up is, people are going to get rid of it. Because if you watch hitting on two jump sets, in order to be a real hitting threat, you need to be facing the net and dishing it off the side of your shoulders. I know like the Japanese kind of in indoor, they used to just face, they would never like square up and turn to the net. They would have their back to the net the entire time and they would set off their shoulders, but they did away with that because then you can't actually see the people you're setting against. So you can't make decisions. But if that's going to keep going, if jump setters are going to learn to jump set and be effective, yeah, we have to set off our shoulders. We have to back set. So is squaring up going to become like super basic? Is that going to be like, hey, yeah, of course, when you're shooting a foul shot, face the box, like make sure that you have the same type of set and type of motion every time. But if you're in action, yeah, you need to pivot step. You need to hit some drop back shots, some fadeaways, and you need to learn how to be versatile. So I don't think squaring up, we're going to get rid of it, but I think coaches are going to understand and practice more setting off of the shoulder, setting sideways, because now it seems like most people need some form of jump set, or at least it's making things easier if you can do it well on the beach. So we'll see if the whole square up, because no one's ever run the test. Like no one sat there with an experiment and said, okay, if my setter faces the passer and then sets off their shoulder, and then we gave that to 500 athletes and had them each set 1,000 balls, are they more consistent or less consistent than somebody who is facing directly where they're setting and allowing the trajectory of the ball to come from the side of my head, which is something that Steven Roschitz from Texas, he's like, it never made sense to me because like I can set off my shoulder super accurate, but allowing a ball to cross my face and then intercept it is weird, because that's what we do in indoor, right? You open to the set first, you look at your passers, and then you kind of get to a pivot point in the air. So, man, I could talk about setting for hours.
I would say squaring is dependent on what level of the game you're at and what skill you're looking at it for. I think it's important to square, like in serve receive, if it's an easy thing to square. Or I'm saying like, sorry, I misspoke. I would say in serve receive, you don't probably have to square as much because then you can be more deceptive. But in my brain, when I was thinking squaring, I was like, oh, you're coming down from a block. You have to turn around and find it. I do think squaring would be important in that instance because you're not being deceptive anyway. So you might as well be consistent.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like when you can be consistent, when you have to set in one place, yeah, square up. You know, I always compare it just to basketball. It's when you have the chance. Are you going to throw the ball off your shoulder, or are you going to face the rim and then shoot? Yes, when you have a chance. But they don't not teach or like yell at you for not squaring up in basketball after a certain level. So when you reach that level and you have the understanding of the principles, and you can apply them, then you're fine. But for basics, for juniors, for coaches who are listening, keep teaching squaring up, but then dedicate a part of the practice to setting off the shoulders. Set some from your left ear, set some from your right ear. Try to open up the level of your hands so that, like, yes, you can get your feet there, but then also teach them how to handle a ball off the side of their face if they need to. So for the coaches who are in here and who are listening, I want to hear some pivotal pieces of feedback that you've gotten and that have really, really, truly been influential. And we can go with indoor and we can go with beach, but attitudes, keywords, or somebody who just broke a belief system that you had where you had to relearn one of the skills or just completely do it in a different way. For me, a few of them like stand out when I got this piece of advice. It was like, oh, shoot, I've been doing that wrong for 3 years. Do you have any of those moments where coaches can pick up since they're listening and say like, okay, maybe that's something I could add to my toolbox? Marlie, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry, you cut out for a minute.
Oh, okay. So the question was pivotal moments from coaches where they gave you a specific piece of feedback that broke an old belief that you had or an old habit that was just so light bulb that you're like, man, I had learned that, or I'd been trying to do it this way for 3 years. This fixed it, or this got me back on the correct course.
I would say the season, it was right before COVID season, actually, going into my junior year, or it was halfway through my junior year, I was not doing well. It was COVID season. It had just happened. It was like the worst mental place probably anyone in college volleyball was in. But I switched coaches in college. So same coaches, but one of the coaches took on the setting responsibility. And he was the defensive guy, but his volleyball brain is just so good. It's Dave Booz at Florida. And he was like, you know what? We're just going to work together and we're going to fix the setting. And it just became like, be athletic. Because growing up, like I never even really had setting training. Like you do like your setting clinic before club practice. But other than that, I didn't have like formal setter training a ton. So I grew up just being athletic, like just go set, just do this. So then once you get to college and you're trying to learn some things, and then it just sometimes it's overwhelming with like, you have to do this, and this.
Like what? Like what's a check down for an indoor setter? What's a check down series that you would have to go through, like piece by piece, or a system that you were trying to fit in?
It was like your feet have to be the ball, no questions asked. You have to be squared. You need to set this person in this situation, this person in this situation, kind of just like over analyzing every piece of it rather than get to the ball, set the ball, feel who's open. Kind of like take it as like every player's different though. Like some players need I'll set this person in this situation, this person in this situation, this in this situation. But for me, it's kind of like I'm going to get to the ball as fast as I can and then I can feel what's happening. And so I believe like Dave allowed me to just like be athletic rather than trying to fit in a almost robotic setting mold.
Nice. So he gave you more options, more freedom, and a little bit less. This is how your feet move robotically. And there's a lot of, internal versus external feedback for coaches as well. Like if you're so worried about your feet, you're not going to set well over time. You won't be able to perform well over time. Like we'd like to, as coaches, give these type of external feedbacks and allow us to think about what's going on in the environment around us and how we're trying to affect it instead of what's going on in my body. You actually problem solve worse like that. So,
For sure.
know what the technique looks like, but but then be able to utilize it in your environment and have an effect on the outside environment.
And then when I went back like a year later or 2 years later after I'd gone to play beach, I went back and trained with Dave, and the mindset switched again. And it was kind of like beat the blocker. Like, how can you, obviously we work on technique a ton, but once you're playing, you just want to win. So how can you beat the blocker? So now every time I go in to play volleyball, I'm like, okay, how do I beat someone? How do I make someone guess? How you just like, not, you don't want to embarrass people, but you're like, how do I get it to where somebody committed somewhere else? And then I'm like, woo, I got it. So I think just making that kind of the focus takes out from, because there's setting some, you don't want to like double, you don't want to like mess up these things, but I think putting it on the opponent to be like, well, I'm going to beat you, then I think it makes you play free a little bit more.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Getting them to move, getting them seeing where they're set up and seeing if they're baiting you. I mean, indoor setting, if you don't study it or you're not familiar with it, it is such a chess match. I mean, blockers can move to a zone to pretend that they're there only to commit to another zone. You know, they can defend a middle far from you or pretend that they're not there and do a reach block. So most people, I mean, people recognize setters are the masterminds, but you don't know how much has to go through your mind and how you're constantly studying the people on the other side of the net. And I think that vision, that awareness on the other side of the net, even though you spend a few years not passing, you know, and not attacking, but just being able to have the vision and the recognition on the other side of the net, I feel like it makes indoor setters have the ability to be lethal on the beach because their attention has been on the other side of the net for so long. Whereas for us, you know, in outside or a libero or a middle, it's just like the ball is here, blocker there, boom. Like there's a lot more going on that you should be studying movements. So I do like a setter's ability to come to the beach. Cool. Well, Marlie, we're not going to hold you for too much longer, but this is the part of the show where, guys, if you are in the Completed Coach Academy and you are listening or you join the Complete Player program, we have 2 live meetings a week. We alternate between our staff hosting them and bringing on a guest, but we're going to open up our cameras and our mics now to anybody who is in the live meeting. So if you guys want to turn on your mics and cameras and ask Marlie some questions about indoor, about setting, about being a professional athlete, about influential coaches, bring it on.
I have a question. Did you ever think of, after UCLA, to start playing on the AVP, or you kind of knew in a way that you didn't want to pursue?
Marine, are you partner hunting right now?
I'm always. No, but it's interesting. I think it's rare. Once people play beach, usually they're like, oh my God, I love beach. But now she went back to indoor. So.
Yes, I did love it so much. I think if it was, I think it was more financially feasible, it definitely would have held more weight. Indoor coming back and it being like, well, that's actually a livable salary that I would be really comfortable with. And then my thought process was like, well, it's only a few months, so I could play beach in those off months too. If, you know, because beach is just something that I find really fun, really enjoyable because I think it's so challenging. But I think it kind of did come down to, I'll give indoor another try because it's more financially feasible.
Thanks.
Which I wish it wasn't. I do.
I mean, if you can get into the league now, the AVP league is now financially viable. I mean, a $40K minimum to play for.
As it should be. I mean, it's such a market that's untapped, and I'm really excited to hear about that.
Yeah. And it seems like the players and everybody involved is pretty excited. I know people are also exhausted from, you know, back-to-back playing and traveling after five months of a indoor beach season, of a beach season. But it looks from the outside like it was going well, and they've just got a buttload of content, and the McKibbins are going to be due for a 2-month vacation after this for the amount of work that they're doing. So, yeah, pretty crazy. If you could cherry pick the partner and you came to the beach, who is the partner that you would pick up? You get any girl on tour, or not even on tour anymore, maybe retired.
That is a crazy question. That is a really, really hard one. I don't know. Probably Sarah Sponsel. I've seen her a few times playing against her. She played for Grand Rapids. I played for Atlanta. Super, super cool person, and I think one of the best volleyball players of all time ever.
Cool. Sarah Sponsel, bring her back to the beach. Yeah, we could use her. We could use a few more of her scorpion kicks and weird body positions when she's making crazy athletic plays. It was fun to see that she, made something and completely dominated on the beach. And then she's like, I'm going indoor.
Yeah. And she was awesome. I mean, she's going to play this year for San Diego. So I would bet she's excited to be back in California. That's my 2 favorite games of the entire year, when we get to go out to San Diego. So I get to see all my UCLA friends, and I'm really excited, actually.
That's awesome. So when is your first match, and how do people go to games and attend them?
Our first match is the weekend of January 8th, 9th, 10th. We're at home. And people, it'll just depend on which game. I know we have a deal with CBS, so some games will be on CBS. Others, last year they were on YouTube, so they're actually really easy to stream. They were just on regular YouTube, which was really easy to watch. And then we play every team 4 times. So I play for the Atlanta Vibe, and you play 2 home, 2 away. And that's just kind of how it goes. We're playing mostly on the weekends this year, so they're hoping for more attendance. I think there'll definitely be more of a draw. And then Big South, the indoor qualifier, comes to Atlanta. So last year we got a ton of teams there, which was so cool. I hope to have that again.
Yeah, Big South is a massive indoor tournament.
It's gotten even bigger in the last 10 years. It's crazy how big it is.
Cool. All right. Cool, Marlie. Well, hey, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you spending with us, and thanks for your knowledge and talking shop on setting. I really appreciate it, and kick some butt this year.
Thank you so much.
To see some indoor games. It'll be nice to flip them on the TV and see pro level ball flipping it out, which I know like NCAA is exciting, but when you start seeing people who are not just introduced to, but are really comfortable with every skill that they have, it's fun to see it at that level, and it brings it to a whole new light. So
for sure.
Good luck.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime. And do you have an Instagram that people could follow? Maybe check out some highlights?
Yes, my Instagram is just my name, Marlie, and then Monz, M-O-N-Z. And that is, I post some volleyball stuff, actually mostly volleyball stuff. It's almost like I don't have a life outside of volleyball, but I try to.
Nice. Yeah. For a while, that was me. It was people were like, oh my God, he's the volleyball guy. And I'm like, that's actually probably what I talk least about in my life, but it's what I post most about.
Yeah, I would say I am the same way.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, thanks again. Appreciate the interview. It was nice getting to know you. And I'll be following you and checking you out. So good luck.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
You're welcome. Everybody else, from Better at Beach, we want to see you at a camp. And if you do ever want to learn how to set in beach volleyball, we do have a 30-day at-home setting program that you can sign up for. You can buy it as a standalone course, or you can join the Complete Player Program or the Complete Coach Academy, and then you can post all of those drills, your techniques, your game footage into our private community, where our staff will then go in there and analyze your videos and help you get to the next step. That's it. Hope you had a great listen. or watch, and enjoy the rest of your drive or nap. From me, from Maureen, from Matt, Brandon, and Cheryl, this is Better at Beach. We'll see you on the sand.